But the question I have for you folks is you seem to be missing from your mission statement. This is a scenic area. Everyone's driving in for the beauty of the canyon. You're putting a parking lot, asphalt, outhouses right on the road in front of Mr. Fergundis and another house. This is absurd. You have 260 some acres to work with. You could easily do away with this trailhead and enlarge the parking at the end. I was there today. You have tons of room to add 60 spots down there. There's no houses to have to smell. I went into your outhouses. They stink. If I were to take an air sample here and release it in this room, it would be empty in 5 minutes, quicker. Well, you know, I don't think you're considering the human impact that you're doing to Mr. Fergundis. You could easily, if you can't do away with the project and put more parking places here, you can at least mitigate all these foul odors, noises, car alarms going off every time people lock their doors, doors slamming. You could easily, there's a knoll that comes down here, and the topography is such that you could easily put it 2,000 or 3,000 feet back and at least mitigate it for Mr. Fergundis.
I definitely appreciate your comments. Thank you. And we will be conducting all of the appropriate air quality, traffic, noise assessments this summer. So we will, after we conduct those studies, we'll have a better idea of what sort of mitigation will be necessary and what our alternatives, our options are. So looking into it again, this is an initial scoping meeting, and we are at the process of gathering your comments, which we're very grateful for, but we are also presenting what the current idea is, and after we have a summer of studies and information, we'll have a much better idea of how to proceed, and then we'll have another community meeting to present further options.
You must keep in mind this is a scenic area. You have hikers, bicyclists, people going down to functions at Little Hills Ranch. They don't want to see outhouses and asphalt-lined parking spots. And you could easily mitigate it by going in 2,000 or 3,000 feet around behind where that old barn used to be on that property.
I hear your comment.
And it can be, or do away with it completely, and there's plenty of room at the end where there would be less impact on people's lives.
Yes,
So,
again, we have noted your comments.
Okay, in summary, I'm suggesting you don't even put this trailhead in. But if you're bent on doing it, even after the fact, I'm asking you to move it back 2,000 or 3,000 feet to mitigate all the noise that Mr. Fergundis is going to have to deal with the rest of his life.
And not just that, but the hit on the value of his property.
Yes, and I have a question on that regard. Are you purposely putting it in front of his house to devalue his property, and do you have dibs on his property? Do you want the other acres to do?
No, it's not on purpose.
Well, why for the life would you put it right in front of his house? Literally, it's 100 feet from his living room.
No, I understand. The further back you move it, the greater the impacts you have on natural resources. There's 2 drainages coming through, and we're trying to avoid those, even with our trail design. We're trying to create an easily accessible point for other community members that also want to come. But again, we are in the initial scoping phase, and we're doing our studies this summer to try and get a better understanding of what the impacts will be.
So, to proceed with the project as you have it right now is a travesty, an injustice. And at the very least, and possibly, if you have other intentions of making Mr. Fergundis' life impossible, then it becomes criminal in my mind. Thank you.
He had to stand up. Yeah, okay, great. So, between grad school and undergrad, I had the opportunity to work at the Park District as a park ranger in Las Trampas for about 3.5 months. I learned a lot of things and it was a spectacular opportunity for me. A lot of great people, a lot of great stewards of the land. One thing I did learn about, though, was crime in staging areas.
Yep.
Staging areas are a hotbed for crime in rural regions. Staging areas that tend to not have crime are ones that are in suburbia, like this, because there are lots of watchful eyes around. So let's look at the trail. We have a trail coming from the main stage area up here, across the ridge top, down over to the whole Faria Preserve region. There's a great place for a staging area that is not in a rural region, will not increase the crime in Bollinger Canyon, either here or here, that still affords the same access to the ridge trail. Something I would consider if I were you, based on all the radio calls I heard over the years about crime in rural staging areas. So, that's that.
Great.
Thank you. You and then you.
Okay, I got about 15 questions about it.
Okay.
That was going on. First, my first question is, you mentioned this being a scope session. What is the real status of this project right now? I mean, if it's a scope session, then if there's enough, in fact, I think everybody here would probably like to see you not put that.
Wrong, you're
trail.
wrong, you're wrong, very wrong.
Anyway, but I know there's plenty of people here that don't want that trail yet. I mean, it adds to a whole bunch of problems. Not only what you're talking about, 25 cars. That's 25 additional cars of what already goes down there. The gentleman here just mentioned the place at the end of the road. You've got how many entry points on the other side? Why come down a two-lane road where there's going to be more traffic, more garbage dumped off the side of the road? You know, you name it. The bicycles down there, a lot of them are arrogant. You know, you can't control that, but they're arrogant. They drive at 2, 3 of them around. They don't get over when you call
Or
them.
others.
You have to wait for them. My point is, it's a bad location for a trailhead. Apart from it being right across from Fort Emerson's house. But anyway, back to my original question, what is the status of the project right now?
So we have a few things that are conditioned. So PODVA is already coming to us. That's not a project we're implementing. It will already be constructed by the time it comes to us. The Peters Ranch connection will be implemented because the Faria Preserve will be building their connection here, and then there's already the existing Elworthy connection. As you know, all the Elworthy is already existing and open. So in many ways, this land use plan amendment is rather complex in scope. It's dealing with components that are already existing, but we want to discuss on a larger, broader scale, and then also to be able to talk about resource management, which wasn't fully evaluated in Elworthy. So we want to get a better idea of what sort of natural resources and cultural.
But in your mind, in your group's mind, is there anything that or you just go forward? Or is there anything in there that the people talking about what affects their lives and so forth that would stop that? Or that you would consider looking at a different location that might be better?
So it's definitely part of our summer of analysis of different locations. Julie, do you have anything to add now? There's also a condition which some of you may be aware of, the Faria Preserve, where they're required to build a 25-car staging area. So whether in this location or another location, there will be an additional staging area built. That's part of their legal requirements as part of the Faria Preserve development. I think the hope for the thought behind having the staging closer in on the canyon is that it would actually divert traffic from going further in. So some trail users would actually be stopping here. Trail users that normally would go all the way back in would be stopping here to use the trail system, thereby reducing traffic. But again, we will be doing our studies this summer to see the traffic impacts.
Well, I guess my other point, and then I'll sit down, but there's two things that I don't think you take into consideration when you put something like that in. And that is, the impact of the people that back up to the park. I mean, just last night, I had 4 people all once they're in my backyard because they couldn't find their way out of the park, so they come down the trail to my house. You know, so no trespassing signs, but they're there. And the other thing is the gentleman right here just mentioned fire. I don't know anywhere along that road where the park comes down to the road that the park actually does the fire abatement. I don't think anywhere. We're required to.
Well,
But I don't think the park district, I don't know of any place along there where the fire department or the park district abates their property. It certainly don't do it near my place.
So currently, most of our fire abatement, well, you can correct me, Julie, a lot of it's managed through grazing, and so we have a grazing manager and our fire department that work together. And then we also do, in certain areas, I don't know all of them, we'll do some fire break mowing along fence lines. Part of the plan for this land use plan amendment is that because there was no land use plan amendment for a number of years, a fire, there'll be part of the plan that will address emergencies and fire abatement and managing the land for that and to take that into account. There are obviously other areas further over here that will not be part of this plan, but.
Well, I just know that presently, I don't think any parkland gets abated. Even though, and we may have animals that graze too, but we're required to do it. And the grass is,
I
like
know we
he
have-
said, this tall.
I know we have grazers here at Chen. I was out there yesterday and I saw the evidence of all the cows. And Elworthy as well has a grazer because recently some of their cows escaped into this area and we had to contact the grazer so he can get them out. So I know that grazing is occurring on these properties, and once the Padva and Faria pieces come to us, we'll be extending leasing, grazing leases or continuing the ones that are already present.
The requirement that the Faria Preserve build a 25-car staging area, is that within the Las Trampas Park, or is that just
Correct.
any area staging?
No, that's to mitigate for their recreational impact. I'm not representing Cal Atlantic or the Faria Preserve. If somebody from the city of San Ramon is here, maybe they can answer that. But I do know that they're required as part for mitigation for their impacts.
But to follow up on what you just said, they don't have to do it up on Faria Preserve? Is that something you were saying? They need to dedicate it somewhere, but not necessarily up there?
The plan was
Because you're talking about 2 5-car staging areas going up there.
on the dedication piece. Yeah, there's 2 5-car lots, like trailhead lots.
So where is the 25 lot?
So that one's planned for along Bollinger Canyon up here at Chen currently.
So the Faria Preserve, which is adding 700 homes to Bollinger Canyon, doesn't have to put up with it. Bollinger Canyon has to take the impact of that. All the residents that have lived in Bollinger Canyon for 50+ years and have been good neighbors to the park district and have welcomed them in many times. Suddenly now we're not going to put it in the most logical place where there's already high density housing going in and most likely people to use it. We're going to put it down inside the canyon where it's not even accessible to the trail. The trail's up there.
There's no cell phone service up there, so if someone gets their car locked in at nighttime, they have to come out and knock on someone's door, because there's no cell phone service up the canyon at all.
Nor is there water.
Nothing.
Right.
We don't have large fire protection either, but if Faria Preserve is going to put in 700 homes with 1,400 people, then Faria Preserve can put their 25-car parking lot up there where it belongs.
The
So,
beginning of
just to clarify for 1 second, the Faria Preserve, the 25-car station, that's part of their requirements to mitigate for recreation impacts. Chen Station area, which was purchased before any agreements with Faria, was actually purchased, and it's in our, resolution and staff reports from 2007. It was purchased in mind to have public access and trail. Operations especially does not have good EVMA, which is emergency vehicle maintenance access, from Bollinger Canyon in order to service the rest of the ridge. And so part of their concerns is wanting to have better access for fire protection, and that's another reason to have an access point here off of Chen.
You don't have access to the ridge from that side, it's way too steep. It's way
That's
too steep.
part
They're
of-
gonna get a donkey on that hill, and that's about the extent of it. But to go back to the 25 I'm talking about, if Faria thinks that they're going to impact our canyon, putting it where, in the Bollinger Canyon, north of Faria Preserve on the west side, this group's gonna be back here for that too, because we're already burdened with the 700 homes. And they're doing an upgrade up there, they could have a 500 car parking lot up there. On the trail, on your Calaveras Trail, right where it all is, where it's accessible. You can't even get up to the ridgeline from the east side when you want to do the Chen parking lot. And without being on a donkey. So no fire truck or tractors when you get up there.
Thank you for,
Actually, one trick, I know that you say you need a trailhead there. I've driven up to the top of a Park District truck before from the bottom of Chen, that access point where the corrals are, all the way to the top. So there's already access to the ridge, right? Regardless of station area.
it's, I think like she noted, it's not the best access. We're planning on rerouting the road a little bit to make it a little bit better and to minimize impacts to drainages. So, and to also make it a slightly better recreational trail. But we did initially buy Chen before Faria ever entered into the picture, with the purpose of having recreational trail use there.
Wasn't it donated, the property donated, not purchased?
Chen was not donated, it was a fee title purchase. Yeah, we have other, like Peter's Ranch over here was dedicated as part of the Braddock and Logan Danville Ranch development, but not Chen, that was purchased. Yes.
I have one question and one comment.
Yes,
And I think I'll have any trouble being heard, so I'm going to stay here.
that's totally fine.
My question is there any restrictions in your conservation easements about grazing?
Grazing?
Yes.
No, grazing is part, well, it's kind of hard to, so they're not quite our conservation easements yet. They're still in the hands of, between the resource agencies who required them and the developers who are developing both PADVA and Faria. PADVA has a few restrictions in terms of some of the drainages and fencing off certain areas that were considered highly high in natural resource protection and water quality. But for the majority of this property, it will be grazed, and it has a grazing plan incorporated into the long-term management plan for both the conservation easement area and the rest of the dedication piece. Same with Faria. There's also a long-term management plan that incorporates a grazing plan.
Okay. And my question is, and I'm glad one of your directors is here tonight. I'm a canyon resident, and you have several facilities in the canyon already, and you're now proposing to expand more facilities to maintain. When you look at the structures that are currently in the canyon that you have, a lot of them are dilapidated, paint chunks are missing on the sides of the buildings, the stables at the end of the canyon are in disrepair. And so, you know, I struggle with the concept of expanding your lands and your programs and your facilities and infrastructure when you aren't maintaining the structures and maintenance and stuff that you currently have in the canyon now.
So something to just address quickly, and I don't think it was quite covered because this was kind of an overview. We mentioned a community facilities district. Both the PADVA piece and the Faria pieces that will be coming to us and the Chen and the staging area proposed on Bollinger Canyon will have community facility districts tied to them as part of the conditions on the developments where those facilities are coming to us. Each new homeowner within the Faria Preserve Development and the PADVA Red Hawk development will be paying a yearly fee to maintain the facilities that will be built as a result of their
But that doesn't address the other ones that you're proposing.
It addresses these
Chen,
two.
doesn't it the Chen 25 lot parking
It's
lot?
part of that.
It's
Yes.
part of that as well? That will be maintained by fee?
Mhm.
Okay.
By the Community Facilities District. The conservation easements have a separate endowment associated with them in order to manage the land appropriately and do the monitoring and reporting that's required by the Department of Fish and Wildlife.
I would advise the director to take a ride down the canyon and take a look at the facilities that are currently in place and see if they meet your standard.
Yeah,
Thank you.
I was there today. Does not look good.
I'm not in park operations, but I'm sure we'll note that, and we can pass it on to the park operations staff. Okay, have not kept track. I have noticed that your hand has been up, so yes.
I'm Jim Stewart, and this is us here, and this is us right here. How many people here actually live on Bollinger Canyon? And how many of you folks are here with concerns or opposition to that staging area? You can raise your hands too, because I know it's you. Right? Yeah, you live on Bollinger?
Sometimes I wonder about
Yeah, I know. You guys are in favor of this, yes? In favor of that staging area? You gentlemen?
Pardon?
Are you in favor of that staging area?
I'm taking a poll.
Yeah, I'm just curious.
I didn't know this was a poll.
Let's try to keep it a little more.
Yeah,
I
that's
don't
fine.
want to
I don't care.
call
I don't want to make it personal. I'm just curious how many people are here actually for this thing. This is an incredibly steep piece of land, no matter how you cut your road. Right? It's not particularly user-friendly. I can tell you, because we've lived in this property, our family's been here for 8 years. I'm not sure it's really your best choice of an access area. I think, as was brought up before, you get up near where the trail is actually more readily accessible at the top of this Faria Preserve. People are going to actually use this. It's much more useful to them. I do have one question. Is there parking within these? I know it's not your jurisdiction, but do you know if there's parking with these access points?
There's one that I know of. I can't speak to street parking, that's City of San Ramon. But as part of the project, there is a 5-car station area within, right back here, right next to the trail. I can't speak to the street parking for these other access points. I do know that they're public access points.
So it makes an incredible amount of sense to have more parking in an area where more people would use it if recreation is your primary intention here. Having a trail that the fire trucks can get out, that's a whole other story, and that's easy enough. In fact, it already exists. There is a fire trail there. Right? It's not real friendly as well. It'd be nice to make it better.
I think it's going to be.
But it's fixable,
Yeah.
but it doesn't necessarily be best to have public access to do this. We're going to have grazing, yes?
Yes.
Right. Where are the corrals going to be?
Yeah, we're working, so park operations staff and the grazing manager have been discussing where the corrals are going to be. I know we have other corral infrastructure in other places in the park.
So you're gonna take down corrals to move them somewhere else?
Yeah,
I
so
think
there's
we're going
already
to utilize already existing corrals in other parts of the park. Again,
All right, but getting cows from here over to here or over to here, that one that's a long ways, 2 pushing cows uphill doesn't work real well, especially that that's covered with woods. Right? That is a miserable place to work out, and down is the only place they go. And I can tell you, because my cows go there on a regular basis.
And it's hard to get them down.
And it's hard. You have a perfectly good corral that's right there. Right? Why tear one out to put one somewhere else and make it really unfriendly for those of us who might actually have to use it?
well, thank you.
Okay.
I think we'll do that. Yes, thank you. Yes, sir.
Who is responsible for the Faria Park ground at this time?
And
Is the park responsible for the ground?
I'm sorry, which one?
For the Faria Park ground?
The phrase, the concept.
Who is responsible for the ground?
it has not actually come to us yet. This Faria area won't come to the park district for another 2 to 3 years. So who's responsible is the current landowner, Cal Atlantic.
Oh, okay, thank you.
Yep.
I just have a question.
Yes.
Interesting, Larry.
I'm unfamiliar. Do you have your own fire,
Grass is gonna be pretty
fire
hard.
department, or is
We
this
do.
covered by Cal Fire?
No, we have our own fire department and public safety.
I live in Danville Ranch, and that's San Ramon Fire District.
So we have joint, Bob, do you know the exact term? We have joint agreements, mutual aid.
Mutual aid.
Yeah, mutual aid
Okay,
agreements.
Because you're absolutely right. The Faria Preserve grass is 4 feet tall, has not been cut. But my logic is just to call the fire department and tell them they have to cut their grass.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I mean,
The point being, he's right, he's concerned about that, and the issue would undoubtedly be the same along the rest of that bridge as well.
Okay, can we go with you first, and then you, and then you? Okay, in that order. Whoever else.
So,
Hi.
I'm Peter McDonald. I wish I had a voice like that guy over there. But I'm an attorney working with Jeff Fagundes. And first I have an initial question, and that is, have you already finalized your draft plan that you're going to do your EIR on?
No.
And are these people wasting their time, or is there actually an opportunity to impact what's in that draft plan?
Good question.
This is our first community meeting, and we have not finalized the draft plan. We have certain conditions upon certain properties that are just, that's what it is going to be. And LPA is already open, and we're not proposing any changes. Obviously, we will take everyone's comments and move forward as we draft the plan and do our studies.
And that's really encouraging, because I didn't want you to be in the position of saying, okay, we're going to listen to all these comments and then we're going to put it into the EIR process and ignore all the comments. Because speaking for Jeff, we truly agree with what Mr. Wareholic was saying, what Mr. Dosey was saying, what all these people have been saying. The location, what that will do to the view, both of his house, but also anybody driving down the road, is totally unacceptable. Jeff and I talking about, that your plan A doesn't work. Plan B, frankly, we have a problem with allowing a developer to buy his way out of his parking area obligation and moving it down to Jeff's property. So that would be the ideal solution to figure out how to make that work. If you don't put it into your plan, you absolutely need to evaluate that in your EIR and explore what the differences would be, because you could find out that that's really the better environmental alternative, certainly be better for hikers. So that's one. If it had absolutely had to go anywhere near Jeff's house, again, Mr. Wareholic really said it. You'd go back to where that old barn was. East Bay Regional Parks has done this, all kinds of locations, Redwood, and several people were citing other ones, where you get it away from the road and you get it back. I know it's great to use the people going down the road to police your parking area, but if you lock the gate, that's not a big problem, but it's just a huge problem both for the view and for the people who live near it. So, at an absolute minimum, when your plan comes out, that ought to be up on the flat where the old barn was, away from the road. So, and I think the audience would agree with me on that.
We'll definitely. Just to clarify, though, we are in the initial study of the CEQA process, so we have not made a determination of what CEQA analysis we're doing right yet. So I just want to clarify that we're in the initial study phase.
But it should also be when the draft plan comes out, get it up there now, and lots of problems will be seen.
So number two, there you are.
The property owner, my name is Ken Sheets. I live in the department to what's going on here with the trailhead. I agree with this more hollow kind of location. It's a poor location. The traffic in the canyon has doubled since I've been here in the last 10 years. It's just a narrow area for recreation of any type. You have a few hikers, but mostly bicyclists. And if you're going to do anything in the canyon, put in a bike lane or bike walking. The point about the location is it's wrong for a lot of reasons. Mostly it impacts his property value. It raises it tremendously. If you were to do that, you haven't done anything here on this proposed plan, the first initial drawing of the 35-car lot, you built on the property line. Nobody allows that. You have to apply for variances. The zone in this area is an 820 at a minimum. That's 75 feet is a minimum, and that puts you out of your parking lot area.
So that's an initial kind of study of what it would look like. I don't want that to be put out there as this is what the final design
Okay,
is.
regardless of how you want to swing it, if you put it in this area, you're going to impact his house, his rental property, his barn. You need a site distance study in here, which is going to include an acceleration, deceleration lane, a bike lane, no parking on both sides of the road, and also a left turn lane. Because people go down that road, they're doing 60 miles an hour. It's not enforced. It's a 45-mile-an-hour zone. And when you get down towards the Faria construction zone, they want you to drop to 35. I've been out near my road just putting on my cans and gotten almost clipped down there by people at sunset. They don't see well in that area, and it's just a really poor area to put something and add traffic into it where you've already got max traffic. But besides that, your trailheads up here, you've got a very long trail. You've got no signage on top. You've got no garbage cans, no sanitation, no water. There's a lot of things wrong with that trail up on top. You don't, the park rangers come through my area, up my road, about once a week, but it's not patrolled. And you get people, I get people coming down on using the fire trail thinking they're East Bay Parks lands and coming down mine and several other properties once, twice a month. I mean, the Losi's had a busload of people come down, they got lost up there. You know, they had 30 people come down their property. This is, you know, there's no signage. They don't pay attention to signs because you don't have it. And when you come down the hill, you get to a no trespassing private property sign, they go right through it, they don't care. How are you gonna enforce this?
Well, we do have plenty of, I mean, for this area that is currently land banked, there's not, well, for the Elworthy Trail, but for Chen, that's land banked, it's not supposed to have public entry. And we will be addressing sign locations. Currently there, because a lot of it's land banked, at least in our area, can't speak to the rest of it at the moment because we're focusing on.
Well, I have nothing to land bank.
What?
I am an adjacent landowner to your land bank here, and I'm concerned that you're gonna add another 700 homes at the end, more people, everybody's coming through that trailhead. Now, I don't know many trailheads where you can go 4 or 5 miles and somebody doesn't have to go to the toilet, they eject their water bottles. The garbage up there is incredible.
Well, I mean, that's definitely a comment we can take and pass on.
It's a great place, you're just gonna double it. It's not a good suggestion.
Okay, thank you for your comment.
Yes.
Yes.
It's a beautiful area, and I love to hike there. I've hiked all the trails. I hiked alone, I hiked with 2 we're doing up there. I'm aware of your problems. I'm excited to get these new hiking trails. I don't know what the answer is. I'm sorry for this gentleman here. I think new trailheads are going to be good for hikers from my point of view. If my house was right there, I'd be concerned too. I don't have an answer for all that. If I lived along the area, I'd be concerned too. We live in Danville, an old area, and I'm just so excited to have Las Trampas and all these areas. But again, I take groups. I hike 3 times a week. I lead group hikes all the time. I'm thrilled for Beverly and all the work she's done to get this additional property. And I hear your problems, but as a hiker, I'm saying, I want to hike up there, you know, and I'm not going to, I got to be careful because Ron, I've gone through your private property, you've seen me there before.
That's right.
Yeah. I did it on my own. I never took a group there.
That's good for you.
I never took a group there. But I don't, our groups, in fact, when I take the Danville senior hikers, they actually pick up paper when they hike. I'm amazed. That's why I hike so slowly. So I know it's easy. I don't know what the answer is. I'm glad we have the property. I want to hike up there, and hopefully there's some solutions that people can live with. So I wish you guys luck. You have an impossible thing to do.
One more there, and then you. Okay, great.
You know, with what Ken Chief was saying, the safety of the whole thing. I myself in the early 80s was hit head-on by a drunk driver coming from the park around that S-turn. And a friend of mine also now, he has brain damage from an accident on that S-turn. We get bicyclists that go around that S-turn right in the middle of the road. They don't get over, no matter what. People are going to get killed there. Now you're going to put an entrance right at the S-turn.
So we are doing our traffic analysis, and that will help inform our decision process, but that will happen this summer.
We're
So-
telling you what the analysis is.
Yeah.
They're going to get
My dad-
killed.
my dad-
Coming in
my-
and out of that entrance, they're gonna get killed, absolutely.
Okay.
My
That
dad
is
were
the
hit
analysis.
head-on
That's
when
true.
a passenger
We have
in the car
requirements
was
to
killed.
do a formal
Wait for
analysis,
someone
but
to
we
die?
do appreciate the comments. Sorry.
Can you work with the, is that a county road or a city road? Is Bollinger Canyon?
County
So it's not your recommendations, if you don't have responsibility for the road, but it's not part of your recommendation, you're recommending the county improving that road?
That discussion can certainly occur. It's a county road, and so safety issues on that road are certainly something that needs to be brought up to the county, and the park district being a partner with the community and the county, that's certainly a discussion that can happen.
Hand his hand up, and then I think we're almost done, so we'll just have a couple more comments.
One here and one here.
Okay.
So, I used to live in Orange County before, in a place called Corre de Casa. And that had a lot of trails going all around that area. And like the gentleman was saying, it's lovely because you just come close to your house, you can just walk from the trail and go to various trails, just be all together. They've got about 4,000 homes out there. And the place with the trail is about 400 homes. It's a very desirable area because it's got those trails coming out there. And I just recently bought a property right here on Bollinger. And the reason for buying that was because number one, Faria is coming up, and I thought it's going to be appreciating. And with the trails coming up around it, I think it's going to give us more value as long as there's safety and we can put better signage out there and keep the crime down, things like that. I think it's going to be good for the entire area, that place, because it's a dead end. By the end of it, you kind of become neighbors one way or the other. So that's my 2 cents.
Thank you. Is there somebody waiting here?
Yeah, my question is in response
And then
to,
and then
yeah, his response. If that trail right there doesn't go in, is that really gonna change anybody's ability to go hiking?
If there's only 5 cars.
There's more access to 750 cars.
I mean,
There's
part of our mission
plenty
is
of
to
other
provide-
accesses. Is that one trail really gonna impact people's ability to hike?
So, I mean, I can't 100% speak to that, but I think there are parts, I understand everyone's concerns, and there are some people who want more access. So, or closer access, and, not having to go as far into the canyon. So,
Then access through their property.
well, not everybody owns property on this Bollinger Canyon Road, but yes.
That's the point.
So, I mean, that's a good comment, and we can definitely consider that.
And that's why we're here today.
Yeah.
I think
That question is exactly why we're here.
her point partly addresses the better access points on the other side, close to better streets and roads and so forth, instead of a 2-lane road. Not state access, I mean, there's a whole bunch of,
Right.
why put an access point on a 2-lane road? Makes no sense.
Yes.
I have a softer voice, so.
That's fine.
Let's see where I'm at. I own this property right here, and it's surrounded by 2.5 sides of the park, which I like a lot because I've been a Danville resident for over 60 years. And I used to hike to Bear Tree, which was this piece right up in here, stone, along with a friend. And so I like hiking, or living in Danville all these years.
Bollinger Canyon Road was one of the most scenic roads that reminds me of the way the valley looked years ago. And so reluctantly, my friend and I, we bought that piece and sold to the park. And I sold Bear Tree anyway, but I just don't have to. So there's a water line that goes through the top ridge. When the park bought it, it also included mineral rights. So there's an East Bay Mud water line that goes from Remington Loop all the way to where Traco Aerospace used to be. Sid Corey, I believe, owns that. And I would recommend that the park talk to Sid and see if they can tap in, and then what Ken mentioned about having water up there or sanitation up there, because you have a water line up there as well. And where my property is at, and I saw my neighbor that spoke there, going through the property and occasionally goes through private property. Again, there's no directional arrows or marking the trails or which way to go to get to another staging area. And I would recommend that, because when you have 700 homes being built in Faria Ranch, you're going to have a ton of people, and it really does make logical sense to have it closest to where the most people are located, to have less impact on the property, and if the park district can do that. And let's see, bicycles. They're driving down that road. It's a very narrow road. And on the edge, it drops off. So if you're a bicyclist, you're going to be more in the middle of the road, just riding. And then there's tree limbs that come out right on the edge of the road. And in a way, that makes the road so scenic and really quite nice. But for bicyclists, they tend to be in the middle of the road. You have 45 miles an hour there as well. And so if you make that staging area across from Jeff's property, and as a real estate broker, it will devalue his property being so close to the road. The sanitation items you have, it does smell there. So if you have to have it right in that Chen property, at least do what you did like with the Elworthy property. The Elworthy property, they put it way back. They put it back, like Mr. Warholic said, 2,000, 3,000 feet. It just, because when people are driving down Bollinger Canyon, they're going to slow up to make that turn. If there's more people going in, it's going to slow everything down. It would just make it safer to have it further back. And let's see. So you really need, if you're going to have it down there, you really need to widen that road and make it safe, because all the residents of the canyon who mentioned it, they know that someone's going to get hurt there. And even I have people even trying to sell houses out there. They won't even, they comment, it's dangerous driving that road. There may be too many curves. Okay, so
we have one more,
Okay, one more.
or looks like two, but this guy's been patiently waiting.
I know you mentioned your, oh, sorry, go for it.
Did she?
Oh, yeah, no,
You
I
still
have a
have
comment.
a chance.
Yeah,
Okay.
okay. So I live on Bollinger Canyon. I live in one of the straightaways there, and people fly through that canyon. They're, doing what appears to be double the speed limit. Most of the time, no offense, it's your own park cops doing it. It's your own rangers. How many more rangers and vehicles driving your park police vehicles are we going to have to put up with on the canyon doing double the speed limit? With no concern. I mean, I've almost been hit putting my cans out too, and I actually try not to let my grandparents go up to the road anymore, but they do what they want to do. So. It's serious. I mean, I've almost been hit. Like they said, it's 45 miles an hour. They dropped it 10. They dropped it to 35 miles an hour, and nobody pays any attention to it, including your own cops. With all your trailheads and all your access points and all your new porta potties you're going to put in, how many more vehicles are we going to see going up and down the canyon as a result of that?
So that's a good question. We can look into it. I don't have the exact number because we're still kind of in that initial
Well, do you have some kind of idea?
But currently, the way it was calculated for Faria and the Chen station area, it was considered about a 3/4 time per person. So So like 3/4 of a person's extra duties. Does that make sense?
So what does
kind
that
of an
look like?
odd calculation. So it's less than one.
Less than one
basically.
vehicle?
One extra person.
Employee, one extra person. For rangers, and then police and fire was a little bit lower, it was more like 0.25.
Well, if you're talking about police and fire, I want to bring up a very good point that just happened. We just had a residential burglary at our house that I interrupted, and needless to say, we had to get the police involved up in Bollinger Canyon. What she brought up about no cell phones is a real problem for you. And I'll give you my little scenario. As I was running away from the burglars, I had to run to the street so that I could get some cell phone service. Then I had to talk to CHP, because that's what you get when you call a cell phone service, who then argued with me to tell me that I don't live in unincorporated, I live in incorporated San Ramon, despite the fact I'm a retired deputy sheriff and Danville police officer. Then what happens is San Ramon no longer dispatched with the sheriff's department. So having been an officer, I said, well, that's a good idea, get San Ramon rolling, because they're a whole lot closer, because the sheriff's department's coming from Alamo. So they let me talk to the sheriff's office after talking to CHP, and then they moved me to San Ramon because they don't dispatch the sheriff's office.
And the burglars.
So 20 minutes later, I mean, fortunately, the burglars were so stupid, they went up the canyon. Then they had to call East Bay Regional Parks. And then everybody started rolling, and then they ended up on 680, went the wrong way down the freeway, and darn near got people killed. We've got communication problems, we've got public safety problems. East Bay Park Police is an absolutely wonderful organization. They are a good group of guys. They're not here. I've heard that they're going to be moving their facility closer, and I welcome that with open arms, especially with the population that you want to bring into this park. I don't think anyone's here really opposing hikers, other than stay off their property. But we don't need more traffic for those hikers when there's adequate and more logical locations for the cars that don't live in the canyon to park and access the trails and hike in Bollinger Canyon.
Okay. I know you've been
Really
waiting,
quick.
so.
So you mentioned earlier that the trail crew wasn't here.
That's
And
correct.
I'm a
Trails
mountain biker, trail development, yeah. I mountain bike a lot. I'm up in Las Trampas, Little Big Hills, that whole area, 5 times a week. 20% of the trails are mountain bikes. And I know that mountain bikes are looked at as snowboarders in the 90s that were out of control and dangerous. But from the National Forest Service, the Canadian Forest Service, there's so many larger groups that don't have to deal with individual perspectives. They're showing that mountain biking actually helps out a lot. Are those trails that you guys have looked at right now, are they already determined to be anything?
I mean, we have a multi-use, like the EVMA, and then the Colorado Ridge Trail section will be multi-use.
So that
It's
multi-use
still being
including mountain
installed.
bikes, because we have multi-use in Las Trampas that you can put a 2,000-pound steel horse, that causes mad erosion, but we can't have mountain bikes. And it's like,
We'll note that.
we don't even look at it.
And look into it. The trails plan is still being developed, so I can't 100% answer right this moment what exactly each trail will be designated, but it's definitely, we'll note that comment. Yeah, thank you. I'm sorry,
It says
we can talk.
8:30 on your board.
I'm sorry,
It
what?
says 8:30 on your agenda.
2 more questions? 1, 2.
So, mine's a comment. I just want to thank the gentleman.
Sorry, on the flyers, it's 6:30 to 8. I have the room reserved to 8:30, so we can
Okay.
that was a typo.
Okay. So I just want to thank the gentleman who stood up here in the gray for picking up trash. As a person that lives on Bollinger, we appreciate that a lot, and it's not often you see that. So thank you very much for your dedication and your groups for picking up trash.
Thank you.
Hi, my name's Scott Gilson. I live in Dublin. I coach mountain biking for a couple different groups, and I'm also a big mountain biker. Mountain bikers add a lot to a resource like this. We're first responders, we're trained in first aid. Where somebody mentioned that cyclists are annoying, we're generally a very respectful group. We don't throw trash down. We provide recreation for youth, and I'm hoping that some of this, the trails that you're proposing include cycling, mountain biking. We are part of the community. We have the East Bay Bicycle Trails Council in the East Bay. I'm sure you're familiar with. We do a lot of good work all around the East Bay. your organization does a lot of great work, and we appreciate it.
Thank you.
I always said that was the last one. One more? You are the last one, sir.
How many mountain bikers get to the trails? Do
We go to
you
the fire.
bike from your home or do you bike from a trailhead?
Both
Both.
yeah.
Both. Sometimes we ride from home, sometimes we ride to a trailhead.
I'm Twin Creeks, I ride down Bollinger to access that.
And sometimes even each trail would vary based on how I feel that day.
So if I could make a couple of concluding remarks. I think we got everyone's question in. Again, Bob Nesbitt, I'm the Assistant General Manager. So I want to make just two comments as we wrap up, and then there certainly can be some conversations. We did reserve the room to 8:30, so I'm sure we can still talk to people one-on-one. But I want to underscore a point that Naomi made several times, and the gentleman over here, the attorney, also made. This is a scoping meeting. This is the beginning. We are here listening, so we appreciate that you took your time and came tonight, and all the questions, great questions, and we understand the concerns about the parking and kind of the desire to get to the end point, get to the conclusion, get us to say, okay, this is what we'll do. And again, this was the starting point. We're here to listen. That's why we're here tonight. So I just wanted to underscore that. The gentleman, the attorney, got it exactly right. That's the way the process goes. We will do studies this summer. There's another opportunity for a public meeting. We do have to do environmental analysis. And so that's why we're here tonight. The second point I want to make is I think these ladies did a great job tonight. Beautifully taking notes. We took notes for everything we heard. Kim was over here, made the presentation, was listening intently to everything that was said. Naoma facilitating all the questions. And then, of course, your director, Beverly Lane, was sitting here taking her time listening to everything that was said. So I just wanted to acknowledge them and acknowledge you for coming out tonight.
Just one point. This wasn't publicized very well as far as I know. But somebody had to knock on my door and gave me a map and told me about the meeting. It seems to me like there would be something for every Bollinger Canyon resident, something in the mail or something to let us know.
Yeah, we certainly tried, and please sign in and name, email us so we can keep in contact with you. We did notice in a variety of ways. We'll continue to do that. It's not our intention to exclude anyone. And you can always tell a friend, and a friend can tell a friend. But we actually felt we did pretty good with the Warriors plan tonight, and we almost filled it. So thank you for coming out.